Hello, Mariner fans, and welcome to the Crow's Nest. My name is Brandon Kane, and I'll tell you what, I am riding high, and I hope you're riding high too. Why? Because our Mariners just closed out the first half of the year absolutely perfectly, as far as I'm concerned, obliterating opponents right and left for a 3-week period, as they're riding now on a 14-game winning streak. That is the best this year in Major League Baseball and would be a franchise record on any other team that didn't have a 115-win season in their history books, as that was the team that won 15 games in 2001, setting that franchise record. So they now have that in their sight as they come out on the other side of this All-Star break. But more importantly, it's about how they're winning. We go back a few weeks ago and you have a baseball brawl. These things are not unusual in baseball. They happen probably less than they used to. And much like other sports, when there is fighting, it's usually a lot of pushing and talking and woofing. A lot of guys moving en masse, but nobody really doing anything. This one had a little bit of a different tone. It built up with a certain order of measure. You could feel it coming down the trek. And then when Winker took that step towards the Angels clubhouse and he said, "I'll take you all on," he came to find his Mariner brothers were right there behind him and they had his back. And indeed, this wasn't a push you, pull me kind of brawl. There were some punches being thrown all over the place. It was a brawl that lasted. I'm not a guy saying I'm just loving fighting, but the most important thing that came out of that fight was not a haymaker thrown. It was that you had a team born of cohesion on the other side of it. I do have your back. You know I have your back. Let's go into battle together, brother. And I know it's baseball, not like football where there isn't necessarily the battling, but just stay with me on the metaphor. Because this team has completely come together. Everybody is putting their oar into the water and pulling. Everybody is taking their chance to be the hero of the night on a given turn. And while, yes, Julio Rodriguez has already at the tender age of 21 vaulted himself up into even MVP discussions, it's everyone doing their part. Nobody trying to do too much and them just finding it a way. The resiliency of this team, the fact that everybody is kind of coming in to supply their part to build towards this winning streak is simply amazing to watch. I, of course, was an optimistic guy with you folks at the start of this year. I cautioned patience. I didn't see this kind of necessarily this type of growth from this team this given year. I thought we were still going to be a year out before we got to actually see it. And the fact that we've gotten to see it while this team doesn't even have the full measure of all of their guns in order. You got Haniger coming back post-All-Star break. You got Lewis coming back post-All-Star break. Those are legitimate bats. Saying nothing of Jared Kelenic, who's been slaying it in AAA. This team's got some more help on deck. And that makes this even more exciting as we look forward into the second half of this year. Your starters have been maybe some of the best in baseball. They're not only keeping the earned run average down and not giving up a lot of runs, but they're also eating up a lot of innings. So you've not overtaxed the bullpen through the first half of the year, meaning they're going to be a little bit fresher in the second half. Maybe you can see where I'm kind of going with this, that yes, you are now 9 games over 500. Yes, you are now a mere 9 games away from the Houston Astros, which is not that far. You're closer now to them, Houston, than you were back in 95 with where you stood in the standings on that date, waiting for Griffey to come back, hoping that you can maybe turn some things along. So you're already a little bit further along than that, and there's already the extra playoff spots. So you're even more secured in your position. Nonetheless, there's a ton of room for optimism as this team looks into the next couple of months of the season, knowing you're getting those guys back. Say nothing of Mr. Dipoto going out there and making a big-time move. Of course, he stood at the start of the season, and boy, did he take some fire and flames from Mariner fans, saying, you should have done more. You should have gotten Story. You should have went out there and got Bryant. Why? How could you not make these moves? You got money. You didn't spend anything. And he didn't. Indeed, he just sat there. He made the Winker and Eugenio Suarez move, and he was very patient. Now, the upside of that patience, which is what I, of course, on my channel since we started this about 6 months ago, I've been trying to push for, is to say, yeah, patience is the approach we want to keep here. And except for one aggression point where I'm going to talk about in a second, but keep the patient, wait for the right deal to come through, wait for the depressed asset to come through, which they kind of did with Winker and Suarez. Those guys didn't cost a lot to bring aboard, and both of those guys have been very important in what they've provided. Yeah, their average isn't through the roof, but Suarez is hitting some timely home runs, and including home runs to win you games. He's shown you power all the way along with hitting some double shots as well within that, playing pretty solid defense. And Winker similarly on his other side of things being at least somewhat solid, even though necessarily the batting average isn't there. Usually the bats are going to start to heat up as we get a little bit deeper into the summer. So I'm expecting those guys to maybe get a little bit better as we go along. But this team is set. The stage is set for them to go now make that move. There are going to be some names out there that are presented. There's going to be teams out there that are going to be competing with us for it. And we might have to give up some assets to do so. But part of my whole thought process was on this of sit back and assess where you're at in the All-Star break. And if you are in position to add just a certain extra starter onto the roster, as they could be very well, I think that's the number one position to me that stands out that you could add outside of adding, let's say, Juan Soto type superstar guy to the lineup, which would be amazing. But obviously that's probably shooting a little bit too high for the moon and a little bit unrealistic. It's probably not unrealistic to say, though, that you can go out there and get another starter to add to this rotation and top it off at the end of the day to add it off just right. And you put that with what you got with the rest of the lineup, with the rest of the guys returning the lineup, they may be able to eject enough as far as runs go to add with that starter to get you into an elite state, even this upcoming season as we move to the postseason. And yes, I know the Yankees are great. Yankees are amazing. In fact, the last check, they were on pace to match that Seattle Mariner 2001 115-win game season. That very well could happen. But remember, Mariners got that 115-win season at that 2001 year, and they didn't even get to the World Series. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, it was a New York Yankee team that knocked them off that year. Well, if turnabout's fair play, if we've got some revenge to maybe enact, what if this Yankee team went out and won 115 games and then they ran up against this young, up-and-coming, upstart Mariner team and we just give them the business? Go out there and shock the world. You never know, but it's one of the upshots of having a type of team like this that is as young as they are, that is as coming together as they are, knowing that you've got the help coming forward. We're not just sitting on the team we have going, this is what we are, this is what we'll be. We're not going any further. You've got guys that are coming back. When Lewis has been in the lineup, he's raked. Even right now, he's raking down the minor leagues on his rehab starts. He's going to come back and rake once he gets in the lineup, and you know you're going to add that. I'd say the same thing with Mitch Haniger. So there's a lot of reason for optimism here, as well as let's laud Jerry Dipoto for the moves he made this offseason to some of the smaller trades that he's made. There's not been that obvious deal out there to go make. Oh, it's obvious. Just go make this deal and that'll solve a lot of situations. He's had to be very smart in his approach and how he's added guys. And you look at that Robbie Ray contract, and so many people were complaining at the start of the year because his performance wasn't quite there. And again, I cautioned you at that time. I said, it's going to come around. Watching him throw, watching the way he's controlling the zone, he's not getting the results quite yet. But just let's stay with this and let it go, especially knowing they had a little bit of a shortened spring training because of the lockout situation there in baseball prior to the year. And indeed, he has come along. Been one of the better base starters in baseball over the last month and a half. And that contract is looking like a bargain at this point, especially when you match it up versus other pitchers out in the league that would be in a similarly performative level, like a Scherzer, let's say, or in that same vein of things. So a marvelous deal there. I mentioned the trade with Suarez and Winker, which is looking beautiful, and even a trade that he just made a couple of weeks ago that went completely under the radar, which few people really gave him a lot of credit for, which was the Santana deal. You have your first baseman go down to an injury on a freakish play. You got the team in the midst of running and going real well. And then you don't have a lot of answers there. You already need a little bit more help in this lineup because at that point, still producing runs wasn't consistent. And you go make this under the radar trade for Santana, which again, doesn't cost you a lot of your prospect value to go get. Yet he comes to the lineup and he provides this team some help. I thought he's played solid defense over the first base side. He's had a couple of very timely home runs for this team, including, I think, a game winner on that side. So he's provided you some pop on that edge of things. I like him a little bit more as a left-handed side of things. But again, a guy that helps this lineup out, gives you another bat in the lineup, especially batting from that left-handed side. His swing works really nice with that right porch and that short right porch over there in our home stadium. So I look forward to this team as they go forward and say, we got all the potential in the world, not 2 years from now, not 3 years from now, this season. The key on this is going to be, can they get the guys back healthy who have been out? Can they maybe go make one or two real nice, even maybe just one big move if Dipoto's got that in his game? Again, you've got it in your bag, and I'm advocating for it. This isn't the same situation now of you looking at and having to make a shortcut kind of trade like you did in the last 15 years, or a shortcut kind of signing like a Cano or Richie Sexton or an Adrian Beltre, where you hadn't developed the talent from within, so you're trying to add other parts of talent, paying high market prices for them in order to do so. Now instead, you've started to add the ball club up. It's in a good position now, but you could add a couple of certain pieces at a certain places and really turn this team into a potential juggernaut as we move to the future. And I would argue that as deep as this farm system has become, you can afford a little bit to give up a little bit to get something that's good right now. And I know Juan Soto's the name some people are mentioning. There's a lot of Mariner fans out there saying this is completely unrealistic. There's no chance you could go out there and get him. I would argue that you actually sit there in as good a position to go out there and get him as any team out there. You've got the draft capital within the farm system that you could offer. You could also afford, in my opinion, to be able to give out the contract. Now, I'm not trying to spend other owners' money out there because indeed you're going to eventually have to be paying Julio here sooner than later. But nonetheless, if you're talking about two guys within a lineup to maybe build around, if there's a big trade to go out there and be made for a guy like that, and the Nationals are listening and they're in a position to feel like they got to turn this thing over and kind of, let's say, duplicate a little bit what the Mariners have done over the last couple of years, it may not be the worst of approaches to take. And I would be completely in favor of that type of aggression at this point because, again, the parts have developed enough in the other areas where you can feel good about where you are with certain guys. I feel good with Cal Raleigh where he is, Julio where he is, Crawford set that at shortstop. I mean, Marte, our first-round pick, who would be theoretically the centerpiece of any kind of trade out there, doesn't necessarily have a clear approach here to getting the majors right now, unless you're going to want to move him to third base or second base. So maybe it makes him a little bit more of an easier piece to package to go get one of those prime guys for another position that you could use some help in right now. Either way, this is an exciting team. This has been one of the funnest runs of baseball I've gotten to see with this Mariner team. And that's saying something because you have the 95 team. You have the 0-1 team with that year that they put together. But this team has been so much fun to watch. You can see them enjoying the game in the way that you'd ideally like your players to enjoy baseball, where it's not just a profession to them, where they truly are the boys of summer. And you can see their exuberance and how much fun they're having. And they're out there dancing and just enjoying themselves. And it's just part of what makes baseball so unique and beautiful and individualistic unto itself. So let's go, Mariners. Let's kill out the rest of this year in a good way, of course. Let's finish out right. And Jerry Dipoto, you've done everything marvelously this year so far, but don't let your foot off the gas yet. Don't get looking too far into that second or third year plan. If there's the right deal that comes down, even if it's aggressive, even if it requires you to give up quite a bit to go get it, let's go. Let's go. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Crow's Nest. We'll be having some more videos coming out on players here shortly. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe as we're trying to get up to 100 subscribers so I can live stream during games. But either way, thank you for watching. And please don't forget, go Mariners.